So it's my great pleasure today, if everybody would just take their seats, please. There's lots of empty tables down here. It's kind of like when I'm teaching, people like to be in the back, but it's actually, if you want to come up front, there's more seats. There's actually better water. We save the better water for the front. It's my great pleasure today to announce the Red Ribbon Award prize winner. Liz Evans has asked me to present the award again, just because people from the Portland Hotel were not here, the Society, and I just want to say it's a great honor to have them here and the work that they have done. They have been working in Vancouver since the early 1990s, and they started off as a society just in terms of housing. Actually, Darwin's in the, who I know, is in the audience, and he knows more, and it scares me, actually, in terms of what he knows and what I don't know. But in terms of the society itself, they have been working since the early 1990s. They started off in housing. They got their name from Portland, in the sense they saw Portland as a sort of a mecca in terms of housing, and they wanted to use that as a sense of to localize in terms of their work here in Vancouver. And they became an advocate group for their work in terms of housing, but now have moved beyond much farther than that in terms of harm reduction, and obviously they're working with the safe injection site. It's a great pleasure this morning to announce the Red Ribbon Award and the work that they've done in this area. And so if everyone could come up on the stage that's here, and we'll take your photos. So let's have a good hand of applause for the award. I just... Yes, you can go back. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, thanks. So good morning, and it's really an incredible honor for the Portland to have been given this Red Ribbon Award. The work of AIDS research is really important to all of us, and we're incredibly grateful to know many of you who have been committed to your work in studying both medical and clinical treatment around HIV, as well as the social scientists who've been interested in the social determinants, all working together to help us end this disease. Thank you for your dedication, and also those of you who work on the front line, thank you for making sure that the people who are in our communities living with HIV have the support and the care that they deserve. This morning I've been asked to present what we at the PHS do and to offer a perspective on how we can better address the complex and challenging needs of people living on the margins and how to engage them into housing, treatment, and care. I'd begin by commenting that doing this work is not always easy, as many of you here know well. We've faced many obstacles ourselves, had to have many fights. Many people have had to suffer. But I am proud to say that collectively we have tried and had some successes in developing an innovative and humane approach to addressing the needs of people struggling with HIV and with addiction. Our starting point has always been people, simply getting to know individuals. These stories were, for us, where our story began. These stories led us to the wealth of humanity in our community, which has in turn taught us everything we know about engaging in the practice of harm reduction in its broadest possible definition. When I first arrived in our community in Vancouver in 1991, what I saw around me everywhere was evidence of a failed policy. I found myself in a community of some 16,000 low-income residents with an estimated 5,000 to 6,000 drug users, people for whom daily survival presented overwhelming challenges. Our belief that the status quo, that the brutalizing war on the drug user, that allowed the drug user to systematically experience alienation, brutalization, incarceration, and death, is not very effective. Our approach is based on the belief that when drug users are offered acceptance, dignity, respite, and hope, when they are told that their lives matter while they are still using, they will be able to live longer, achieve better health outcomes, and live happier lives. This, to us, is the beginning of treatment, and it is not conditional. For me, my personal starting point was a young, idealistic nurse. I studied nursing at Ottawa University, and after graduating, I worked in psychiatry. I was frustrated with the limitations of the hospital system to address the real needs of people cycling through the emergency department. People, while labeled mentally ill, were frequently also impoverished, living with addictions, and socially isolated. I left the hospital and started working in a residential hotel for 70 people living in the poorest area of Canada. I was completely overwhelmed by the reality of what I saw, and walking to work I would often feel sick as I came to grips with this tragedy. There was terrible sadness, violence, people completely overlooked, hundreds of people literally thrown away, people who were developing life-threatening infections, being beaten by police, overdosing, losing their families, and dying. There were many images of our community in the media, and all of them bad, like this one, the 4 blocks of hell. Many in our city considered our community to be a blight or a ghetto. People were not seen in it as human. There was no treatment available, as people were not seen deserving of treatment. And hospitals and clinics generally didn't want people from among this group in them. There was almost nothing available for you if you were an addict other than blame and hatred. It was overwhelming. What could I do? In a way, not very much. I could clean, I could be kind, I could listen. I started by just being with people, hearing stories, and being amazed and humbled. And I firmly believe that if you can do nothing else when the obstacles are many, listening, being kind, can plant a seed for change. This was 22 years ago, and a lot has changed since then. But if you had told me then that it could change, I would never have believed it was possible. In spite of all the shocking statistics, many of them, the people that I then somehow viewed as weak and in need of change or broken, just kept on surviving. One of the most valuable lessons I learned in these early years was to recognize that it was patronizing, condescending, and disempowering of me to assume that the people I met felt as hopeless about their situation as I did. What my reactions told me a lot about was where my own wounds were that needed to heal. In understanding my own journey, I could become more able to see what the people I met really wanted, who they really were, and not who I needed them to be for me. By understanding this, I could begin to meet people where they were. Of the first people we housed, all lived in extreme poverty. 90% were injection drug users, 65% had a diagnosed mental illness, 50% were living with HIV, and 85% had experienced the criminal justice system, and 80% were undernourished. Once people moved into our tiny little hotel rooms, we would often joke that we felt like we were the bridge to nowhere. As people experienced a high number of physical, mental health, and addictions issues, they were suffering without any professional help or involvement. And in spite of numerous attempts on our part to try and link people to resources, these attempts often felt futile. We spent many hours performing CPR on people who had overdosed, and the majority of residents experienced frequent and repeated bouts of infections and infectious diseases, including hepatitis, TB, syphilis, repeated cellulitis infections, pneumonia, endocarditis, bone infections, and septicemia. They cycled through the criminal justice system and could be labeled with a whole host of neurological and psychiatric diagnoses, everything ranging from FAS to schizophrenia. They were coming from substandard housing, if any housing at all, and all had frequently experienced extended childhood trauma, and rarely, if ever, could identify a place to call home. We determined early on the one thing we could do was allow a permanent and stable housing unit. We could at least put an end to homelessness and welcome people who had been told they were unwelcome. And while these tiny SRO units weren't much, they were a place to be called home that could never be taken away. This led us to the conclusion that we had to not only meet people where they were psychologically, but also physically. If someone needed their feet tended to, we would try and find a podiatrist to come to the hotel. If they needed HIV meds, we would try and have them delivered into the building. We found a handful of healthcare professionals and outreach workers who were willing to come and visit people in their rooms, and everything we did was based on establishing trust. And at that time, it all went against the grain. What began 22 years ago in one hotel has now grown to create a network of supports for marginalized people in our community. That includes a range of housing options from emergency shelter beds to brand new purpose-built social housing units with supports. We now house over 1,100 people in 16 different buildings. Some are brand new and some are still old hotels much in need of repair. But all of them welcome people wherever they are at. Some offer medical supports on site, and some have intensive supports for specific needs. But all of them provide home. Oops, I'm not sure how to do that.
I would say that it's a place where we try and build community, we try and get people housing, we try to make it a place for people that they feel comfortable temporarily. And we try and make it the best place that we can during a time where people are having a difficult time and they need a friend, they need people to help them, they need some assistance in getting their lives back together, and that's what we're here for.
That was the new fountain shelter, sorry, I missed the beginning of that. And this is Station Street.
The eligibility for the building was homeless or vulnerably housed. So we have quite a few people who moved out of shelters and out of SROs from all over the community. We had one guy who we couldn't get in touch with him when after his interview to tell him that he got a unit, and on Monday night he was sleeping on a bench and he just knew somebody recognized his blanket or something, and he got tapped on the shoulder and was told to he should come down and see if he got a unit or whatever. And so he shows up and I'm like, yeah, Mark, we've been trying to find you, where have you been? And we went upstairs to show him his room, and not only did he get in, but he also won the lottery and got the 1-bedroom. So he's like, oh my God, like I was worried about the snow coming tonight and you're telling me now, today, I can move into a 1-bedroom apartment. And he did, and now he's here.
In the early 1990s, there was a very high number of overdose deaths in our community, largely due to the availability of cheap heroin. These were extremely difficult years for us, and while we have not yet eradicated drug overdose deaths in our community, the landscape is very different today. In our worst year, as all of you know, in 1998, over 400 people died of drug overdose deaths. And it has taken the combined efforts of our public health officials, politicians, academics, activists, and the public to turn things around. Needle exchange services did exist when I came to the community. However, the fixed site exchange was opposed to needle distribution, and they limited the number of needles throughout the early 90s. This was a period when hundreds of people converted to HIV. Since 1991, we have provided clean needles in our housing and made it known to the people that we house that they can come and help. They can come and get us for our help anytime, or even ask someone to come and witness their injection, particularly if they are alone or in a high-risk situation, as well as offering access to naloxone. We were only able to do this because we found willing partners in the medical profession to stand up and help us to get the right thing done. Now we are able to work closely with pharmacists and physicians alongside our health authority to provide methadone treatment in addition to operating a unique managed alcohol program that has resulted in stabilizing the lives of some of the most chaotic non-beverage alcohol drinkers in our community. Throughout the backdrop of this history of trying to create access to services and the physical space to accommodate people who actively use drugs, there was always a much larger battle. A climate of complete intolerance. And many things had to happen to change this, and one of these things was extensive public education. To try to create a different conversation about what was happening, to counter the mainstream media's version of events, we held some community conferences and we engaged people from other countries to tell us what they did. We protested, we built crosses, we told stories. We went to the media and we spoke out in many public venues, and all of this challenged and pushed deeply held beliefs. We began to advocate for a supervised injection site, a place where drug users could come and inject drugs inside under medical supervision, away from the risk of death and disease. At one community event entitled Out of Harm's Way, a woman named Angela, who I knew well, shouted at me while I was up on the stage, "Hey Liz, where's my $10? I love you." I laughed and I told her that I'd see her later at the end of the day, which I did. I gave her a hug, I gave her $10, and I said goodbye. And that was the last time anyone saw Angela alive, until her DNA was found on the farm of a serial killer responsible for the deaths of over 50 women in our community who were addicted and marginalized. People who, as they disappeared one after another, weren't considered worthy of a proper police investigation. By September 2003, after hundreds of hours of work from hundreds of people in sight, Vancouver's injection site was officially and legally open. People had begun to change their minds. They were starting to see that providing respect and healthcare was caring. And the site opened as a partnership between our nonprofit organization and the local health authority with provincial funding. Insight was endorsed by all 3 levels of government and signed off and supported by our local chief of police. When Insight opened, it was a very moving day, as it truly did offer sanctuary from the back alleys. Here, drug users felt proud of this new identity and citizenship. It was an entry point into care, into treatment for hundreds of people. And now I'm going to embarrass Darwin by showing a short clip.
When somebody comes to Insight and decides that they need to use the service, the first thing that happens is the staff is going to take them aside for a one-on-one conversation. And that's really important. We don't just throw paperwork at people. We talk to them about their drug use patterns, why they're here, why they need to use the site, and we tell them what the site can offer, and we make sure that they know that the site is for them. It's for their health care, it's an important social contact for people, it's an important place of respite. So after we've had that conversation, if they decide to sign up, we'll sign them up quickly and we'll give them a code name that they can use so they can use the site anonymously. After that, people can go into the wait room where they wait to get into the injection room, and there's staff there to chat with them, find out how they're doing, and make sure that they feel comfortable in the site. They'll go into the IR, they'll be given a booth, they'll be shown the array of clean equipment that we have, which is broader than most needle exchanges can offer. We'll show them things like where the sinks are so they can wash their hands with some soap and water before they use. It's incredibly important, small things like that. They can talk to a nurse while they inject, they can learn safer injection techniques, they can see the nurse after they're done for some wound treatment if it's necessary, then they can go grab a cup of coffee afterwards in the chill lounge or a cup of juice, and we can talk about some of the broader issues. We can talk about what it's like to live in the Downtown Eastside. If this person's homeless, we can talk about housing. If this person needs methadone, we can get them in touch with that. If a person wants to talk about detox, we can tell them about on-site upstairs. Great site for people to go to where we can just look at them, treat them as human beings, treat them with respect, and say, what are your needs?
This is also just a very tiny clip of our mobile needle exchange services.
For some people, we're like their clubhouse, we're their place of refuge, where they can come and not worry about being ashamed or embarrassed of anything. You know, you can always come to us and ask for anything, and we're going to do the best that we can to help you out, whether it's harm reduction supplies or just an ear to listen to you, or referring you to other resources in the area. I mean, we're there all the time. Christmas Day, you know, we're open. We're always open. So everyone knows that no matter what time of day or year, you can always come to the depot, and generally we have what they're looking for. So that feels good.
And then lastly, a little clip of the Life Skills Center.
When you come to Life Skills, you walk in, it's a welcoming environment. As soon as you come in the door, you can feel it. We try to be as friendly, a lot of smiles. You don't ever have to move along Life skills is coffee twice a day, breakfast, lunch, showers, laundry, movie room, living room, library, computer access, art studio, acupuncture, homeopathy, foot soaks, and at nighttime it becomes a woman-only space where it's a women's shelter 365 days a year with a Downtown Eastside Women's Center. Also Beauty Night comes in, and another organization called DAMS, and they make 2 beautiful meals twice a week. So it's a very well-used center.
Unfortunately, Insight hasn't always been easy to keep open. And as you all know, while Insight produced over 33 academic peer-reviewed research papers indicating that it had a positive role to play, the federal government decided to do their utmost to shut us down. So the PHS, along with 2 brave drug users, Dean Wilson and Shelley Tomic, took the federal government to court. We went through 2 provincial courts where the rulings were appealed by the government, and we ended up all the way in Ottawa at the Supreme Court of Canada, where the case was heard on May 12, 2011. Miraculously, we won a unanimous court ruling where all 9 Supreme Court judges agreed that the federal health minister's failure to grant Insight an exemption to stay open contravened the principles of fundamental justice. And then he was ordered to grant one. The ruling that they ruled that Insight has been proven to save lives with no discernible negative impact on the public safety and health objectives of Canada. And since Insight opened over 10 years ago now, well over 1 million injections have taken place using clean equipment under the supervision of a nurse indoors, out of the alleys, and off the front doorsteps of local businesses. Not one of the now over 1,300 overdose events that have taken place there has resulted in a death. Now, in addition, outside of Insight, there is an entire continuum of supports created to improve the quality of life for people living in our community. Now we're able to find points of entry into healthcare where they previously didn't exist. And through strengthened partnerships with our health authority, other community agencies, and the people that we serve, the PHS has been able to create a number of low-barrier healthcare services, including the provision of antibiotics in a home-like environment, where drug users are able to receive treatment for life-threatening infections at a much higher rate of success than in the hospitals, where they often will choose to leave before the course of antibiotics is completed. In addition, the PHS co-manages a detox, which is above Insight, known as Onsite, a medical clinic in the Portland Hotel, and a women's treatment project. Changing attitudes about who the people are that are using drugs and who live outside of mainstream services can be a challenge. Trying to convince care providers to like or to care about people whom they frequently hold strong biases against also presents a huge challenge in developing widespread systems change. However, in my journey, I have repeatedly been amazed by how rich I have always felt in the experiences I have been so privileged to have. There are no easy ways to end discrimination, but as in all areas of blindness, the people who choose to live in fear are the ones who are missing out. The Downtown Eastside is full of people with stories, hopes, dreams, and fears, just like the rest of us. They are also wounded, just like the rest of us. Perhaps our greatest collective victory has been the new language that has emerged in our community, a new way that people have started to talk about themselves. People have started to find social membership, whether it's by getting a bank account at our community bank or through finding other meaningful things to do. And most often, the starting place to this is having a place to call home. People are engaging in social activities as they find more and more space that it's opened up. The PHS now has between 600 and 800 people in the community employed in a variety of activities across the community every month. These opportunities range from removing gum with a street cleaning machine, to cleaning clothes at a laundromat, to working in a vintage clothing store, preparing and delivering hot meals in our food program, working on an urban farm, playing street soccer in a homeless league, or working in the community art studio and retail store.
So far, 'cause I'm going through the motions.
The Downtown Eastside today not only survives, but it generates hope within itself on a daily basis. Now, over 20 years later, we have hard data that shows that the current approach we're taking works. People in our community are living 10 years longer than they were in the early 90s. This has, for the first time that I can remember, drawn positive media attention to our community. Media not just focused on the need to cleanse or purge people out, but media that is actually celebrating the people they can so quickly vilify. This situation is the result of the hard work of so many people, hard work that has created an entirely different reality for drug users, many of whom can now feel welcome in housing, have access to basic health care, and find a sense of social membership. What we've all learned is that living with the intense emotional pain that leads to addiction is not easy, and nor is healing it. But I believe that the solution lies in our understanding and commitment to the people who live in our communities and their need to regain dignity as members of a caring society. A society that says that your life is important, your drug addiction does not define you, and that our policy is built around acknowledging your worth as a fellow human being, wounded as we are, using drugs or not. The Portland Hotel Society is just a tiny piece of a solution in attempting to provide care for people living with HIV. We've worked predominantly with the people who do not easily access mainstream services, and I'm the fortunate person that gets to stand here and tell this story. But our strength really is our community. We have an amazing volunteer board of directors, many people who've served in community agencies. And I'm also exceptionally honored to work with a 5-person management team who's been together for over 20 years, and we're like family. We are also blessed by an exceptional group of managers, staff, and peers who work, I'm gonna cry, sorry. Who work tirelessly every day to make sure that people live with respect and dignity. Just a small number of people are here today to celebrate the receiving of this award, and I want to acknowledge them and thank them because this really is for them. Thank you all very much.
So we're going to announce okay, sorry? Okay, thank you everyone, and especially to the Portland Hotel and Liz Evans for your great talk. It was greatly appreciated. The work that you've done is amazing in terms of the work over the time that I've been here in Vancouver. I've seen a transition, and I came around the same time, so it's amazing what has happened. In comparison to what I've done nothing in comparison to what the society has done. So it's greatly appreciated in terms of the work that you've done. So we're going to announce the winners of the New Investigator Award. So we have 4 winners, 1 from each tract. I'd like them to have an opportunity when they come up just to if I mispronounce your name, to come up to the podium and actually pronounce it properly, and maybe just actually have this opportunity to just quickly say where you're from and what was the title or the meaning of your research that you've done so far. So if we could have the slide for the first one, we have Ariel for Basic Sciences. We're also going to take your photo as well, if she's here. I don't think she's here. Oh, she's, oh no, she's not here. So we'll go, yeah, that's a photographer. Yeah. So we'll go on to the second one. We have Dalji for Clinical Sciences.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Please say a few words.
So my name was pronounced correctly. Thank you. I'm from here, from the University of British Columbia, and I'm just nearing the end of my master's degree program. And the research that I was presenting on, or had the opportunity to share with all of you, was on profiling the vaginal microbiome in HIV-positive women. And what the real goals of this are is to improve women's health through, I guess, an unprecedented understanding of sort of what the bacteria are in the genital tract, and to get to a point of developing better diagnostic techniques as well as better treatment techniques for women. So that's basically what it is, yeah. Thank you.
We have to. So, for epidemiology, we have Carmen.
Thank you so much. I'm Carmen Logie. You didn't try the last thing. I was presenting on HIV, STI prevention intervention, working with community health workers in Léogâne, Haiti. That was a Grand Challenges Canada Rising Star and Global Health funded project. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Think a little closer. Thank you.
Last one.
And the last one is Tara. Is Tara in the audience? Well, if you see Tara and if you see Ariel, just give them congratulations and a big hug.